Every Thursday night, study classes are held.
The gentleman speaking right now is the person hosting it, and then he will be moderating it, asking the questions to the chief.
Or even two. So Technocracy invites your investigation. We have nothing to hide. We invite you to attend those classes. Find out what we have to show you. Then check up on it for yourself. We ask you to believe nothing. To come in and find out the facts. And then, still not believing it, but check it up from any reliable source, and you will find that Technocracy is still accurate. We have now some of the questions, so we'll ask Howard Scott to return to the platform and answer some of them. The first question how could Technocracy take over without overthrow of the government? Is the first question.
Technocracy is a research educational organization, non-sectarian, non-profit, non-political. It doesn't propose to take over anything. We have no assumption of power theory. It's up to you people to change your own government to suit your needs and requirements. Understand that. Technocracy is not going to take over anything.
Why do technocrats, as members of a research educational organization, wear uniforms, patches, and so forth, and go in for saluting?
That's very simple. Anyone will tell you that the retention of the human animal is proportional to the repetition. The more you see it, the more you retain it. Look at yourselves when you get home tonight in the mirror. Look at the people you see on the street. They may come out of a church. About 15 minutes afterwards, you can't tell the difference between a Christian and a Democrat. Now, those that are on representing the organization, we insist that they symbolize the ideas and the principles that they stand for. If they haven't got guts enough to do that, they're no damn good to us or to you either. What do you want, a lot of Hollywood glamour girls? This color, we adopted it years ago because south of the Mason-Dixon line, it's gray enough so everybody remembers it. North of the Mason-Dixon line, it's blue enough so nobody knows what it is. We're proud of it. You can cross any boundary line on this continent. We're stretched out from coast to coast in Canada. We have units in Canada, farther north than Fairbanks, Alaska. Brother, that's an achievement with no angels, no endowments, and no subsidy. Our vehicles are gray, our planes are gray, our boats are gray. The United States Navy copied word for word, paragraph for paragraph, and comma for comma, our specification in its wording. This is the lowest visibility color. You remember it in your Navy release on their gray uniforms. The only trouble with the Navy was it didn't make a cloth as good as this. Now, it's not a military organization. What is it you're frightened of? Regimentation? Look how naive you are. If you had 10,000 babies in here tonight with diapers, they'd all have a uniform on, wouldn't they? Men and women in this organization are proud to wear it. Proud intelligence. To beat you, all they have to do is drive an official painted car. And they can be deaf and dumb, and you're curious. If you see two, you're perturbed maybe. If you see 50, you're intrigued. If you see 1,000, brother, you join it. What is the fundamental difference between a planned social economy and the system you advocate? Well, we had a planned social economy under Roosevelt. Now, of course, we're proceeding from the organized planned economy to designed anarchy under Truman. What do you mean by planned economy? There never was one in this country. You can't have a blueprint for national housing. You've all got to build your own little rat holes. Oh, you've all got modern, soundproof, air-conditioned houses? You live in them, do you? You can afford them, can you? Huh. Not unless you're running a racket or own a bank. There's quite a difference. Under technocracy, for the first time in the history, social history of man, the contract of citizenship in this country would guarantee your economic security so long as you remain a citizen. You have no guarantee today of your economic security whatsoever. You do have the freedom to work, the freedom to pursue it, but you have no guarantee you're going to get anything. Why, you even have to buy an insurance policy, so you're worth more dead than you are alive. Well, under a technate, there would be no insurance policy, because every citizen under his contract of citizenship would be guaranteed against disease, accident, old age, or disability, without exception to race, creed, kind, or color. And only citizens could live and work in this country. Understand that under a technique. Visitors from foreign countries would be the guests of this conference. But no one would be permitted to live and work here except citizens. They must be citizens. How long do you think this present system can function? Whoever's asking that is looking for business information when to sell short.
Would a technate be a dictatorship of engines or engineers?
You just love to be browbeaten, don't you? Do you think, with all the installed horsepower we have on this continent, that any individual or group of individuals can dictate the physical operation of that equipment? In other words, you change the laws of mechanics, of physics, of chemistry at will. My heavens, wake up. It's the degradation of energy on this continent into use forms and services. And it's those physical laws which dictate, not the individual. Technocracy is proposing a production and distribution of abundance to everyone on 4 hours a day, 4 days a week, for 20 years of service. See if you can match that under your Democrats or Republicans.
How closely are you connected or associated with communism?
In Russia, the only so-called example of a government supposedly operating under communist principles, they have state banks, savings accounts, bank deposits. The state corporations have stock, or stock is deposited in the state bank. They have bonds like you buy here, government bonds. In other words, it's a price system in Russia exactly as it is here, with one difference. Here it is privately owned, and there it is state-owned. The Russians have collective farms. The collective farms average 2,500 acres each. And each worker on a collective farm has a little plot of ground, a little house, a little shed. He also, besides working as an employee of the state collective farm, raises a few pigs and chickens and vegetables and sells those as a private trader, either to the collective or in the outside market. Now, 2,500 acres with our technological equipment, that's all right for communist Russia. But for heaven's sakes, let's get a technological design. Technocracy's agro-technological units are 25 miles by 25 miles. 400,000 acres in a unit. What the hell have we got to imitate Russia for? Oh, we're not deprecating the Russians. Communism is sufficiently radical and revolutionary for the old world. They still have alternatives in Europe. There is no alternative on this continent. Either you have a technological organization and a redesign of all production and distribution and social functioning on this continent, or you have chaos. We of Technocracy consider communism so far to the right that it's bourgeois. If you're going to have social change on this continent, don't imitate any place else. Let's develop our own. We don't have to borrow from any place on the globe. We've got the ability here. We've got the technological knowledge. We have the technological equipment. The only thing we lack is the will to accomplish it. So let's develop a strategy that is as unidirectional for this country and this continent as the Russian strategy is for Russia.
How do you think technocracy can be made effective when fascists and communists are fighting for control?
No, the communists aren't fighting for control in this country because there isn't enough of them. But fascists, yes. But the public of the United States thinks it can be apathetic and take no position. We're trying to get you to see that you'll have to organize yourself. The organization of a labor union isn't enough. And we wouldn't insult you by asking you to organize to put somebody in political office under this system. You may insult yourself, but we won't insult you that much.
Are Negroes and Japanese Americans allowed to join technocracy?
Any citizen of the United States is eligible for membership in technocracy except those elected to political office. Fair enough?
What is technocracy's foreign policy?
Well, I have to be humorous right here, ladies and gentlemen. I think the most efficacious thing we could do at the present moment is can the businessmen of the United States and export them to the foreign cannibal market. They'd poison the cannibals and we'd be rid of the businessman. Kind of tough on the cannibals. It's very simple. There are only two contiguous continentalisms. The USSR is a contiguous continentalism by accident. This continent, the continent of North America, the Technate, will have to become a contiguous continentalism by intention and design. The only way you can compete with a one contiguous continentalism is to have an equal to or a greater than contiguous continentalism. Russia, the USSR, is 8,200,000 square miles. The proposed Technate of North America is 10,300,000 square miles of land area, 2 million greater. Now, all this talk of war, no matter what one may think of the Russians, I don't speak Russian, I don't know them. I'm only speaking from the data, that geologically, from the standpoint of land area, climate, resources, this continent and the USSR dominate the resource position of the globe. And if Russia, the USSR, and this continent were offensive and defensive alliance for the preservation of peace, all the rest of the world couldn't make war if they wanted to. Under a Technate, we would have no interest in sending our troops or our warship to finagle some foreign territory for the benefit of a bunch of American chiselers. We would make this continent the finest place in the world to live. And the rest of the world could learn from our example here. We would export methods and specifications of continental operation that would be worth something to the world instead of the dollar diplomacy and the dollar goods that we're trying to shove down the throats of the Chinese, the Romanians, the Italians, the French, or anybody else.
How do you propose to bring about the change from the present system without voting out the old system?
That's up to you. You can vote it out. You can have a 22nd Amendment to the Constitution. You can have it nice and peaceful, provided it's done as an organized, disciplined, sane proposition. But if you wait till that posterior gets kicked up back of your ears, you won't have time, and you'll have mob violence, and it won't be nice. We of Technocracy don't propose to do it. We're merely pointing out that you as a public have to do it. We're not up here posing as a great leader condescending to impart information to you. We're not intellectual liberals, you know, who spend all of their time acquiring the erudition of the higher institutions of learning in order to make up their mind to decide, not to decide. So the job is yours. It's your choice. It's a choice of all the little people of this continent. You have the choice of becoming big people for the first time in history. Let's hope you make the right choice.
I am a GI buying a house on the GI Bill. What are my chances of paying for it? Or will I likely lose it?
Depends on how long you hold your job. Unless you married a girl that can support you. Of course, the question is today, even if it is sanctified and legalized, whether you're really married on less than $6,000 a year. In New York, I'd raise the ante. If it's less than $4,000 a year, you're really living in sin. Because as an economic state, you can't maintain. Of course, when both the husband and the wife work, that's being very democratic, isn't it? You both help to bring in the income. In that case, if you both lose your job, it's a hell of a mess, isn't it? So if this GI that asked the question, if he loses his job, does he expect the bank that holds the mortgage to give him the house free under this system? The government didn't guarantee him a house, did it? It only said he had the right to buy one. You got the right, brother. Just hang on to your rights.
How are we assured of a technate and not a dictatorship if we should have total conscription?
Dictatorship in a technological day and age. So you're still decision by opinion, whether it's the opinion of 1 or 100 million. What do? You just count noses. In the case of the dictatorship, it's one nose. In the case of 140 million, it's more noses. Both are stupid. If you change the economic system to where no individual can acquire economic power, where no individual is permitted the private ownership of public property, but every individual is guaranteed the private ownership of private property. Quite a little different. people wouldn't like that, though, because you wouldn't be able to control the production of wheat or cotton or coal or oil or anything else. That would be public property. In other words, you could raise roses if you enjoyed roses. Your own books in your home, etc. But you couldn't control the economic processes of this continent. If there is no private ownership and there is no political representation, but there is a governance of functions, you can't have dictatorship, because for the first time in history, those who would originate legislation must also execute it. Congress, the Senate never did that in history. They only legislate and then let the poor sap out here try to operate.
And the American political structure.
And you're listening to Technocracy Radio, and
What do you think?
well, I'm going to pause it right there. And he was just asking Howard Scott, can we survive the next depression? Well, isn't that the